Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and as always, we're a podcast that talks all about Usagi Yojimbo. And I'm going through the series one issue at a time. And today we are at, I want to say, probably one of the most, I want to say one of the most pinnacle, prolific story arcs in the Usagi Yojimbo franchise. Well, long story arcs, I guess you could say, because this is a couple issue story arc, and we're looking at circles today. If you're new to the podcast, thanks for listening. Go back, listen to all the other old episodes. If you're a returning listener, thanks for still listening. I really appreciate it. Much appreciated. And if you want to help the podcast grow, listening is always a good thing. But also, share the podcast. That's the best way to help us grow. Tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your kids if you have kids. Maybe not to your kids, I don't know. But as always, let's get into this. And we're looking at chapter 1 of Circles, Wind Over the Tombstones. In this episode, this podcast, I can't talk tonight. This comic starts off with Usagi surrounded by a bunch of bandits. They got bruises on their eyes. It looks like one of them is a dog. He has like a circle ring. He kind of looks like Spuds McKenzie. The dog, was it the Target dog? Or there was Spuds was like a dog from like the 80s or 90s. I can't remember when Spuds McKenzie. He wasn't the Target dog. He was something else. I can't remember what he was. But this dog samurai looks like one. Spuds. He is being attacked by these samurai, and we see these two woodcutters. They're looking in the background at him. They're like shocked, and I love this scene where Usagi has he's grabbing one of them. He's getting ready to strike down with his sword. He's kind of like fish hooking him through the mouth, which is pretty funny. I have to say, I like this. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna play a little dirty. I'm gonna fish hook you in your mouth. Usagi ends up running off all these samurai, and they're like, oh no, we gotta get away. Let's hurry, let's get away. And Usagi asks the traveling woodcutters, I guess they're traveling woodcutters, I don't know. They're probably from around this area. He's like, are you okay? He's like, oh yes, samurai, we're all good, Thanks for coming along. If you wouldn't have come along, I don't know what they have done. Especially, I don't know what they've done to my daughter. Does he think like bad stuff is going to happen? I'm guessing probably bad stuff is going to happen to his daughter if Usagi didn't come around and save the day. But we won't talk about that today. And the woodcutters happen to say, since the shogun's peace, many samurai have actually been left jobless, and they become bandits. They're scum, and the woodcutter, he's like, I mean, no disrespect to you, obviously, but the other samurai are a bunch of scumbags. You're not a scumbag, Usagi. That's what he says. And the woodcutter happens to say that they're the band of bandits are terrorizing the area, and one of them is actually a devil, apparently. So very interesting. And he says, "Oh, you happen to look familiar." And we get the whole introduction. I am Miyamoto Usagi. I grew up in a village near here. Because if you don't remember from the past couple issues, Usagi has been wanting to go back home and settle down and somewhat like retire, kind of, from being like a ronin. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I know you're the former village head, Miyamoto's little boy. You've grown up a lot, haven't you, Usagi?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember hearing about you, Usagi. You went off to be Mifune's retainer before he was defeated, and I heard you were being a wandering samurai." He says, Usagi says, yeah, I've been wandering here and there for the past couple of years, but it's time for me to actually settle down. And he actually ends up saying goodbye to the woodcutters and leaving to go pay his respects to his former master, Katsuichi. If you don't remember who Katsuichi is, we saw him, I want to say, was it Samurai Part 2 is when we first saw Katsuichi. He's the swordsman who actually trained Usagi He was like his only student at the time, I believe. And we get this like kind of like flashback where Usagi remembers the last time he went to go see Katsuichi, and he's like he paid his farewells to his father when he was going off to go serve Lord Mifune originally. He went to go pay his respects and say goodbye, and he went to Katsuichi's house, and he found that there were a lot of dead bodies around because he finds out that the Dogra school, who they were the basically rivals to Katsuichi's school of like swordsman fencing type of thing. And Usagi ended up beating him like single handedly, all of them. He was like Katsuichi's only student at the time, and they even get a little reference like, "Oh, Usagi Book 2, go check it out back there." Good on Sensei for putting that little Easter egg or footnote in there. And Usagi goes to uh, inspect all these bodies. Like, all the bodies are still warm. They must have attacked Sensei, for the revenge that I did, and stuff like that. He's like, not even he could fight an entire school of, 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 like samurai or whatever. And we see Katsuichi actually fighting off a lot of the students from the Dogra school, and it's a pretty crazy sight to see. And we see one in particular. His name is Shimura, and Higashimura. I'm probably mispronouncing that name. Higashimura, which it kind of looks like he's got like a pompadour kind of going on, and he's like, we're gonna slay them, kill them for what they did, or Katsuichi for what he did. You can't take us all on. And Katsuichi's like, I can take you all on, and you're no match for me, and you're even no match for my student, apparently. Um, but they go to attack him, and Katsuichi is on a cliff. He ends up taking out one of the fencing school members who actually uh, falls off the cliff behind Katsuichi. And we see Higurashima, blah, blah, blah. I can't talk. Higashimura. We see Shimura, and he's like, "Oh, you're cowards! We gotta fight and kill, like fight like samurai." He says, and as one of the other guys is charging Katsuichi, uh, he ends up like sort of like falling forward, which leaves Shimura the advantage on Katsuichi, and like cuts Katsuichi in the eye, causing him to fall down. And we get this scene where Usagi yells, "Sensei!" And they're like, "Stop, we got to get him. He's his only student." And they go, and Usagi takes them all out single handedly in a rage. He goes berserk, as they like to say. And we've never really seen Usagi truly mad, except for in the duel. He was kind of mad, but he wasn't this mad. He almost goes like Wolverine berserker rage, it seems like. And they all end up running away. And we get this really, really, I have to say, emotional scene. You see Usagi go from anger to just sadness, and he falls down to the ground, collapsing, crying over the fact that his sensei possibly could be dead. Come to actually find out that Usagi ended up searching for weeks, apparently, searching the river for weeks, and he did not find any body whatsoever of Katsuichi. Um, he couldn't find him at all. He thought he was dead. He ended up searching for so long. He ended up having to stop searching because his duty, he was called upon for his duty for Lord Mifune, and he had to go do that because he was honor bound by his new lord that he was going to get into service with, or service for, I guess you could say. Um, Usagi in the present day now, after the flashback, Usagi ends up going to Katsuichi's house, and he's like, "Oh, it looks like somebody actually lives here now," he says. And he goes into the door, and he's wearing like a hat, kind of like to keep the sun out of his eyes. And he ends up getting a sword almost to the face, where he gets half of the front part of his hat cut off, and it looks kind of funny. But he's like, "Why are you attacking me?" And he ends up seeing this kid. And the kid's like, "Bandit, you're gonna loot here, aren't you?" And Usagi's like, "You're mistaken. I'm not one of these bad thieves, wanderers, or whatever." He's like, "Liar! I'm wise to your outlaw tricks." And he actually goes to attack Usagi, and Usagi basically slaps him, gives him an old Batman bitch slap, and he like thumps him over the head with the sheath of his sword, which is pretty funny. And you see like, now Usagi says, "Now who are you and what are you doing here?" And the young kid is like, "You've beaten me, outlaw, kill me and have it done with," as basically he says. And Usagi's like, "I'm not gonna kill you." And you hear a voice off in the distance say, "You've learned well, Usagi." And he's like, "Who's that?" And Usagi is shocked to see his old sensei, Katsuichi. And Katsuichi has one eye now. He has an eye patch. He's looking well, spry, and not dead, apparently. Usagi's like, "The last time I saw you, you're going over the cliff of the river." And he's like, yes. I did that, yes. But let me explain inside, let me show you exactly what's going on. My student will brew you some tea. And they go in, and you see Katsuichi's like, "No, I was talking to uh, Shunji." And because Usagi got confused, because Usagi is Katsuichi's student, if you don't remember. But we meet Shuji, who is the young student to Katsuichi now. And then we get this funny little exchange between Shuji and Usagi, which is pretty funny for the little misunderstanding and whatnot. And Usagi is like, "Oh, we've been drinking tea for hours, Sensei. Like, what's going on? Can you please tell me exactly what happened?" Well, apparently, Katsuichi was swept up in the river near death, apparently, and he was basically nursed back to health by Shuji and Shunichi. Shunichi is Shunji's brother, and because they helped him out and like saved him basically, he became their sensei and taught them in the ways of Katsuichi's sword style, his school, basically. Because according to the Katsuichi, Shunji and Shuichi's mother have died, and their father, I think their father was a country samurai, if I remember correctly, and he was like off like doing stuff or whatever. I don't remember exactly what he was doing. Shunji says that Sensei always compared us to compared us and said we were unequal to your skill. Apparently, to Usagi, he's like, "Oh, really? He could tell me I was barely competent." And we see Katsuichi tell Shunji like, "Enough, don't be talking about what's between a student and his master. Sensei is confidential. You can't be talking about that." And I love this scene. This scene is so cute. So Shunji ends up saying, "But Sensei, you said he was the best." And uh, Katsuichi's like, shut up, you." And Usagi kind of like giggles and whatever and whatnot. Katsuichi says, before he was rudely interrupted by Shuji. Uh, he says, that apparently he wanted to get word to Usagi about that he was still alive, but apparently Lord Mifune was killed and he had become a ronin, and he could not actually find him to tell him that he was still alive because he was roaming the countryside, apparently, or roaming the country. And Usagi talks about how, with Lord Mifune dead, he had nobody to serve, and he starts talking about how he actually did end up returning to his home once, which we haven't covered that story. We actually returned twice, technically, I think. No, returned once, because in Samurai, I don't think he was with Lord Mifune in that samurai story where he returns home. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, please. But in Homecoming, I've never not covered Homecoming yet because it's an early Usagi story before the original series, original run of Usagi. It's like 2 short stories, I think. I haven't covered it. I will cover it eventually one day. I guess I should have covered it before this story. Anyways, but he talked about how he returned home one time, and whatnot. And, it's time for him to actually return home again. And he wants to settle down. And Katsuichi says, remember the first words I said to you, Usagi was? And Usagi says, you called me a fool. And Katsuichi starts to laugh, which is really funny. And he's like, no, I actually told you to go home and live a happy life. And you're finally taking my words of advice to go live a happy life, you know? And this is where another story that we already talked about comes into play, where Usagi starts saying, if this is Shunji, where is Shuichi? And you're the student. And Katsuichi's like, oh, he left months ago. He was apparently killed in a duel. Usagi's like, what a duel? And this is where we find out that the man that, oh God, what was his name? I forgot what his name was. His name was Shubo. So Shuichi apparently dueled Shubo and died. Apparently, that's what happened. And he talks about how he actually killed the man he killed Shubo, and Shuji is like, oh, you killed that scum, all good. Usagi's like, yeah, I killed him, like, reluctantly. I killed him. I didn't want to kill him, but I had to at this point. And that's when Katsuichi basically butts in. He is like, you continue to learn, Usagi. Your words make me proud, he says, because obviously that's Katsuichi's teachings, and stuff like that. And they end up, calling it a night and whatnot. And elsewhere, we see this little boy, Bunny Rabbit, who technically you've met before, but we didn't cover the story, so nobody's met him before. But he lives in Usagi's hometown. This little boy bunny comes out and he's running through the rain. The rain's coming down pretty bad. He's like, oh, rats, I got to get out of this storm. And we see this figure, which we haven't seen in quite some time. This dark figure in the rain happens to be Jay from Blade of the Gods. Jay is back. We had nowhere where Jay's been. We don't know where Jay's been. Jay's been gone. But Jay is back, and he confronts this little bunny boy, and there's like a crack, a boom, a flash of lightning, and the little bunny boy is gone. So we transition from that with Jay and the little bunny boy, and we go to, I'm guessing it's the next day, where we see Usagi and Katsuichi practicing with wooden swords, and we get this really cool fight. You don't remember Usagi and Katsuichi have fought before, and Usagi had to land a hit on Katsuichi, which was apparently really, really hard to do. He doesn't land a hit here, it seems like, but Katsuichi actually takes him out, and we see Usagi kind of like go, oh. And Usagi says, the years have not dulled your skills, sensei, and Katsuichi says, maturity has added to yours. And Shuji's like, oh, magnificent duel. Yes, this is all great, and whatnot. He's like, oh, this was amazing swordsmanship. And we get to the end of the story and whatnot. Shuji is just like gawking and like fanboying over Usagi and whatnot. But Usagi makes a new friend in Shuji. It's good to know that Katsuichi is still alive, and Usagi tells them, unfortunately, I have to leave. I'm going to go home and whatnot. It's good to see that you're not dead, Sensei, and that's where our story ends. And for the first part of this story, I have to say it was really good. It was really good to see Katsuichi back again, Usagi Sensei, and it's cool to see that this actually tied into the duel, because we did get reference to somebody else using the style that Usagi uses for like sword fighting. Because if I remember correctly, Usagi was Katsuichi's only student that he took on. I think was it after he left the Dogram school. Did he leave the Dogram school? I can't remember if he was part of the Dogram fencing school. It's been a while since I've read Samurai. But yeah, to see that, and honestly, um, so when I was reading this, I was like, wait a minute, like Katsuichi died? Did I miss an issue? Like, did I miss the issue where Katsuichi, when I first started reading this, I was like, did I miss an issue where he died? So I thumbed back through like a bunch of the old stories in the first like big book of the collector's editions for this. And I was like, wait a minute, like, no, Katsuichi didn't die. Am I having like some kind of weird like Mandela effect where like I thought he died type of thing? But no, nope. Stan Sakai just pulled the fast one on me and made me think that I read Katsuichi's death in another story. But that's something I thought that was pretty funny, just to say the least. I was like, oh man, I really thought I missed out on a story because there were a couple of stories, like I said before, that I have not covered because at the time I started this podcast, I didn't have those stories because I was originally reading from the Origins collections, not the big, oversized hardcover collections for the original Usagi run. So I was a little confused a little bit, not gonna lie. But I love catching up with him. I love it when we get to catch up with like old friends of Usagi and referencing other issues, seeing him like tie things together, and different elements from different stories and whatnot, whether they're good, like happy or like whatnot, But this is a really really fun issue. I really really liked it a lot. Not a lot of action, but it was still a fun, quick read, and looking forward to getting through the rest of Circles because it's, in my personal opinion, I feel like it's one of the best longer format stories, in my opinion. But thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this issue. Go back, listen to all the old episodes, tell your friends. Let me know how I can improve the podcast. You can find me on Thread or on my Facebook page, Usagi Podjimbo and Usagi Yojimbo podcast, or just type in Usagi Podjimbo. You'll find it. Thanks for listening. Give me feedback, and we'll catch you guys on the next podcast. See you later. Peace out. Stay safe, and go read some Usagi Yojimbo. Bye, guys.